We want to make sure that the American people understand what Adam Schiff is doing is not the normal way that you conduct an impeachment inquiry. It gives the Democrats an opportunity to show the American people where they are on due process, and they get to say, look, you know, we're perfectly content with closed-door impeachment inquiry, or they get to say, you know, this isn't quite right. We want to do this the right way.
Republicans blasting the way Democrats are handling their impeachment inquiry, especially House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff. Now they're pushing for a vote on a resolution to censure Schiff. Let's bring in our headliner, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, good morning to you. We had a chance to catch up with your colleague Andy Biggs earlier. What are your expectations for that vote this evening?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I assume the Democrats will vote against it and Republicans will vote for it. But let's get back to the start here. Look, this is an unfair partisan process being run by Speaker Pelosi and Adam Schiff, trying to impeach the President of the United States 13 months before an election based on an anonymous whistleblower with no firsthand knowledge, who's biased against the President, who worked with Joe Biden, who did a memo the day after the phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky. And in that memo, the whistleblower says, oh, this was scary, this was frightening, what happened on the call, and yet he waits 18 days before he files a complaint. And what's the first thing he does in that 18-day time frame? Runs off and sees Adam Schiff's staff. And Adam Schiff doesn't tell us that his staff met with the whistleblower, and now is running this impeachment process behind closed doors in the basement of the Capitol that no one in America gets to see. That is the problem, and that's why the resolution, the censure resolution, is being brought to the floor by Congressman Biggs.
Going back to the vote to censure Schiff, expected tonight, why go down that road? Does anything change as a result of that, or is that for show?
Well, I think it's to demonstrate to the American people and highlight just how unfair the process is. I mean, again, closed doors. Some members of Congress, most members of Congress are not allowed to be present. Matt Gaetz was trying to get in a week ago. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee, which will ultimately have to deal with articles if, in fact, there are articles of impeachment. He wasn't allowed to attend the interview last week. Other members aren't allowed to attend. We can't see the transcripts. He selectively leaks part of the transcripts. And, oh, in the hearings, actually in the interviews, no White House lawyers can be there. No agency lawyers can be there. The State Department can't have lawyers there. The minority are not given subpoena authority. We can't call the witnesses we may want to call to get the information for the American people. And most importantly, it's all being done in the basement of the Capitol where no one in the country can see, based on an anonymous person that only Adam Schiff and his staff know who this guy is. The rest of the 300+ million people in this country have no idea who the individual is who started this whole darn thing.
Congressman Himes from the other side of the aisle is saying that essentially Republicans are whining too much. Listen to his take.
What is happening is that there is no way for the Republicans to defend the actions of the president here. What the Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, said, there's no way for them to defend that behavior. So as a result, what they're doing is that they're attacking the process.
What do you think about that?
Well, two things. One, of the opening statements that have been released and the transcribed interview that we're allowed to talk about, namely the special envoy to Ukraine, Ambassador Volker, has all made clear that there was no linkage whatsoever between security assistance dollars and any type of investigation. That's point number one. Point number two on process, this is not your average investigation. This is about impeaching the President of the United States 13 months before an election because they're afraid that he's going to win in 2020, which I think is going to happen. So the Democrats are going after it. That's what this is about. So you can't compare this to other investigations. And you certainly can't use the argument Adam Schiff begun to use last week. Adam Schiff said, oh, the reason we're doing it this way is because there wasn't a special counsel or independent counsel. In effect, saying he's the equivalent of an independent or special counsel. Try taking that argument to the American people. See if they think Adam Schiff's an independent special counsel and a fair fact finder here. So that is why this process is so wrong. And the American people, they get fairness. They understand fairness. And they instinctively know what Adam Schiff is doing, what Nancy Pelosi is doing is not fair.
Got it. And Republicans continue to question that process. And one that is one of secrecy is what I hear you making that point again. Meanwhile, Mick Mulvaney over the weekend tried to defend those comments that were seen in his admission of a quid pro quo. How did he do defending that over the weekend?
Well, look, I think Mick clarified his comments a couple times, both on Thursday after he had made his initial comments and then again in the Sunday morning shows. I think when you go back and look at it, he made two key points. He said, first of all, the president was always rightly concerned about the long history of corruption in Ukraine, and the president was also concerned about this idea that European countries aren't doing as much as the United States is doing to help Ukraine deal with the challenges that they face. And so those were the two key things. Like I said before, when you look at Special Envoy Ambassador Volker, what he said in his interview and what has come out from opening statements that have been released from the other people we've interviewed, it's been very clear. No quid pro quo, as Mr. Mulvaney said, no linkage whatsoever between any type of security assistance dollars for Ukraine and any type of investigation.
You said that the American people will sort of see through this impeachment inquiry, but when you look at the headlines, in the major papers, they're constantly screaming about impeachment and so forth. Do you really think that the folks back home are going to reject the idea that impeachment is warranted here?
I do. I mean, I was back home in Ohio on Friday speaking to a group of folks in the 4th District of Ohio, and they very clearly understand and see what's going on. They know this is not fair. They know this is partisan. They know it's not treating they see no basis for this whatsoever. And they also understand the history of Mr. Schiff. They understand what happened in the Trump-Russia investigation. They understand the things he said about that turned out to not be accurate. So in the big picture, they get it, and they understand also the good job the President of the United States is doing, leading this country with the tax cuts, the regulatory reform, the growing economy, who's on the courts now, all the positive things that have happened in the 3 years that he's been President of the United States.
But based on what you're saying, go back to what we just heard from Jim Hines, who sits on the Intel Committee, the Democrat, who says that Republicans can't defend the president, so they're attacking the process.
No, it's both. There was, as everyone has said, and what we've heard, no quid pro quo whatsoever, and the process is flawed. The process is unfair. The process is being run by partisan people. That is without doubt. We've never had an impeachment inquiry done this way, so certainly the process is not how it should be, and I think the American people understand that.
Would you advocate a vote of the full House today, tomorrow, on impeachment?
That's Nancy Pelosi's call. I think if they had it, they might not have the votes. I think a lot of these Democrats in districts that the president won, I think they're reluctant to vote for this because I think they see it, and I think they're hearing from their constituents who see what's going on here and how unfair it actually is.
All right.
But that's how, if they're going to do it, that's how it should proceed. I don't think it's warranted. I think we should never went down this path. But if they're going to continue down this path, there should be a vote on the front end and actually set up fair process, real rules, real due process for the President of the United States and for the minority party.
They appear to keep going down this process because we've got more key witnesses appearing on Capitol Hill this week. Big testimony happening. U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Taylor about those infamous texts testifies tomorrow. So this continues. Final thoughts, Congressman, before we let you go.
Well, what's interesting is I went back and read the whistleblower's complaint. The first page of his complaint, he says more than half a dozen people gave him information over a 4-month time period that formed the basis of his complaint. To my knowledge, we have yet to hear from those more than half a dozen people. Now, those are supposedly people with firsthand knowledge. Why haven't we heard from them in Adam Schiff's unfair process? Why are we only hearing from these other witnesses who have what appears to be no firsthand knowledge of anything that was supposed to be the basis of this whole darn charade we're going through? I think that's an important question. And frankly, why haven't we heard from the Inspector General? That was all done behind closed doors, only in the Intelligence Committee. I would like to hear from the Inspector General. I'd like him to be in for an interview so I could ask him some questions.
Congressman Jim Jordan. Congressman, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Congressman.